कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः।
The consciousness which is universal, which is without any limitation, without any form, whenever it is revealing anything formed, anything limited, anything objective, our focus is always on that limited revelation, not on the revealer. So there we miss the revealer. When we don't try to see anything in the world, the mind, the sense organs remain silent, the mind remains silent, the intelligence remains effortless, then the self reveals itself. In Kathopanishad it is said, Yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasa saha buddhischana vicheshtate tamahu paramam gatim. This is the state Kathopanishad is speaking about. Now this is an experimental record. It is the record of the experiment performed by our rishis. Yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasa saha buddhischana vicheshtate tamahu paramam gatim. This is the state Kathopanishad is speaking about. Now this is an experimental record. It is the record of the experiment performed by our rishis. In the next shloka of Kathopanishad, he says, Tam yogamiti manyante sthiram indriya dharanam apramattastada bhavati yogo hi prabhavapyayau. He says that this is called the yoga, which is sthiram indriya dharanam. It is not that the senses are asleep, but they are not active, they are not functioning. And what is the state of the yogi? It is apramattastada bhavati. Apramatta, the word has come from pramada. That is, this is the state of attention. All other states are not of full attention. As we are seeing everything, the focus is always on the limited things. We are knowing the small things, but not knowing the revealer of everything, not knowing who am I, my real identity. In this state we come to know of our real identity, what is revealing the whole world, what is revealing our inner faculties also. Everything is revealed by that revealer reveals itself. Now this is what spirituality leads us to. I started with religion and spirituality. That religion is based on a concept of God, our faith in a concept of God. And this concept of God is different for different people. Suppose you are a worshipper of Shiva. There are thousands of people worshipping Shiva, but is not the Shiva of A different from Shiva of B? We can never compare. The concept of Shiva in a person A will definitely be slightly different or very much different from the concept of Shiva in a person B, another person B. So it is the concept of our mind, and we have a certain faith, we have a faith in our concept of a mind, and with that we do something. But spirituality is not that at all. We are investigating into the ultimate reality behind the whole universe and the ultimate reality about our own identity. And in pursuing that, we finally arrive at this discovery of our self, of our real identity, and also discovered that on this the whole universe appears to be. So in a way we can call it the source of the universe also, this revealer, this consciousness as a source of the universe. But the moment we say it is a source of the universe, we try to relate causality there. That is the problem we have. The moment we say that this is the source of the universe, everybody will start thinking that again we are linking it as a causality from where the universe is born. It is not like that. It is not related by causality at all. The whole universe is appearing to be on this consciousness. You cannot relate this consciousness by causality as the source of the universe. In our logic, this Srishti, the universe, the normal material causality is called Parinama Srishti. That means in material causality, whatever is the cause, it gets changed in producing the effect. Suppose the book is here, if we burn the book, ash will be produced. So the book will die and ash will be born. The book will no more be available. But in this appearance of the world according to this discovery, the whole universe is appearing like a vivarta. It is called Vivartavada. This theoretical formulation is known as Vivartavada. When the universe appears in the consciousness does not change at all. We can get a very close clue about it from our dream phenomena. That in the dream what is happening? The whole world in the dream world is real before us. Whatever we are doing there, it is real at that time. In the dream we can have the touch, we can have our hunger satiated, we can speak, we can run, everything is real there. That is, whatever thoughts are appearing to be, the whole world is created out of that. Actually it is happening when we are wakeful also. Whatever thoughts are there is some creation taking place within, but because it is contradicting the signals we are getting through the senses, we don't worry about it. People who get confused between the two, we call them schizophrenic or something like that. That is, they confuse the reality with whatever is going on in their thought, the external reality with whatever is going on in the thought. Suppose you are thinking of your office and you are here. Now the moment you start dozing, will not the office become a reality before you, and whatever the ambience here, it will simply vanish. You will start working in the office, interacting in the office, thinking that you are in the office. So the thought is immediately producing the whole world, the grossness of the world, the subtlety of the world, the materials of the world, everything is made of the consciousness in the dream. Like that, the whole universe of which my body-mind is a personality, body-mind personality is a small speck. The whole universe also appears in the consciousness. We can say it is made of the consciousness, but not in the material sense. So this is where spirituality stands. It is an experimental discovery on one hand, and also to understand what we discover through experiment, it is a subtle, rational analysis of the buddhi to understand what we have discovered in our experiment. This discovery of the real identity, the discovery of the self on which the whole universe appears to be, this, I said, is the greatest discovery of human civilization. Not just because it fulfilled the inquiry, fulfilled our seeking, the inquiry into the ultimate truth. There is another great result of this. Everybody generally is looking for joy. Is it not so? Whenever you are doing anything, why are you doing? You will say that you go to the factory to earn money. With the money, what will you do? We will get some comfort, something. By that, what will happen? You will say, finally you have to say that I will be happy. Suppose even you are doing something for the country, and if it is asked that by doing that what will happen, I feel happy doing that. Whatever is done, it is finally we are looking for joy. Now, this discovery has a byproduct. When they are going into their innermost core, at one point they found, when they are not tied to anything in the universe, not even to their own body, mind, desires, nothing, when everything is gone, they found they were flooded with ananda, they are flooded with joy. It was so much that the rishis sang, Anandadhyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante, that the whole creation is born of ananda. The point of creation, it is ananda and ananda alone. It is not like the joy we perhaps always think of. It is a joy which never goes. Ananda means it is a permanent joy, which will be there in happiness as well as suffering also. When there is suffering, we try to avoid suffering. When there is sorrow, we try to avoid sorrow. We get depressed in sorrow. But this ananda makes us joyful even in sorrow. It is not the joy we usually think, but we will no more try to avoid the suffering, the sorrow. We will never get depressed in sorrow. We will never get elated in happiness. So it takes us to a samatva, to an evenness, to a placidity of the mind. That placidity is preserved throughout. And they discovered that this joy is a natural coordinate of our soul. It is a quality or property of our soul. Normally, they understood that normally we are not getting this joy because our mind is distracted with the likes and dislikes, with the desires and with the fear and hatred. Our mind is always disturbed with that, agitated with that. When we are desiring something intensely, you know that when we desire something intensely, by the fulfillment of that desire, the joy is also intense. If it is small desire something and the desire is fulfilled, the joy is also not much there. So when we are intensely desiring something, then all other small desires, they are kept away. Our mind is focused on that desired object which we are intensely desiring for. So when that desire is fulfilled, then our mind becomes quiescent for some time. It becomes calm for some time. It becomes desireless for some time until other desires again crop up in the mind and it disturbs the mind again. So it is because of the subsidence of the desire that we start feeling the joy which is always welling forth from our own self, from our own identity. The joy is always there, but we are not able to feel it because the mind is distracted by the likes and dislikes, by the desires and hatred, by the fear of losing what we like and the fear of facing what we dislike. Even death, we have fear because we don't like to lose life. We don't like to lose the enjoyments of life. As long as we are attached to the enjoyments of life, the fear of death will be there because we don't want to lose what we like. So this likes and dislikes, fear, hatred and desires, they always make our mind agitated. With that agitated mind, the natural placid joy of the soul gets covered. We are not able to feel it anymore. It is just like as in a lake, if the surface is rippled, if the surface is disturbed, then we are not able to see the bottom. But if the surface is calm and if the water is pure, the purer the water, the clearer the vision of the bottom. You can see the bottom of the lake also. So as the mind becomes less and less disturbed and it becomes purer and purer through spiritual sadhana, the soul perception becomes clearer and clearer. The blessed joy of the soul becomes more and more everlasting with us. Finally, when the mind becomes absolutely pure, we say that the mind becomes the soul. A pure mind is nothing but the soul, because the awareness of the soul, the awareness of our real identity, the self, is never missed. It becomes permanent with the mind. And that is the great benefit of this discovery. So this discovery actually fulfills us completely, because if we consider our inner personality, it has the intelligence, it has the emotion and the thoughts. The emotional part is never getting fulfilled because we are always looking for joy. We are always suffering from some insufficiency in us. You know why this insufficiency? Because as Upanishads say, we are born of joy. Anandat dhyeva anandat hi eva khalvimani khalu imani bhutani jayante. All this, the entire universe is born of joy. We are born of joy. Now as the river, you know what is the source of the river? It's not the mountain. The real source of the river is the sea. From the sea the water vapor is going up and it is shedding rains and snow over the mountain. From there the river is born. Now the stream flows down, flows through the uneven terrain. That running goes on until it meets the sea. That is the source of the river. When it meets the sea, it becomes the sea. You no longer can identify that, well, this is Ganga water, this is Yamuna water, this is Brahmaputra water. The whole water, it is the sea. The identity, the separate, limited identity of the river becomes merged with the sea there. Like that, we are also born of the universal, unlimited, unbounded soul. And that is the source, that is the joyful soul, that is the state of joy also, the Ananda also. Because we are missing that identity, we are missing the joy, we are always suffering from the insufficiency and we are looking for joy. We are desiring many things, thinking that by getting that we will become fulfilled. But have you seen anybody by getting anything from the world has become fulfilled? You think that by making the building I will become fulfilled, but as soon as we enter the building, the defects of the building starts paining us. The family people may say, this is wrong, this door should have been there, the window should have been there. And all the joy of the new building is gone. Like that we think that by getting this we will become happy, by getting more money we will become happy. Have you seen ever anybody becoming happy, fulfilled by getting more and more money? Rather, it is the other way, the truth is the other way around. So, nothing in the world can fulfill us because we are not to be fulfilled by getting something from the world, something limited thing from the world. This is enshrined in so many shlokas in our Upanishads. Small 7-year-old Nachiketa tells Yamaraja, when Yamaraja tries to allure him with various material gifts from this world as well as from other world, the golden chariot, the musicians, the dance uses, the kingdom, and also as long as he wants to live thousands of years of life, he said, you go on enjoying all these things. Nachiketa says, na vittena tarpaniyo manushyo. He said that man can never be fulfilled by vitta, by any property, wealth or material possession. He can never be fulfilled. Because the fulfillment lies in desirelessness. He also mentions, there is a great statement of Nachiketa there. When Yamaraja said that I will give you thousands of years of life, you enjoy all these things which are extremely difficult or even impossible for any human being on earth to have. I have given you all these things, you go on enjoying. I will give you a long life, as long as you want, even thousands of years. Nachiketa simply rejected everything, saying that api sarvam jivitam alpameva. He says that whatever lifespan you provide, it is not sufficient, it is always insufficient. Suppose a person lives for 20 years, he will have desire to live more to enjoy the world. When a person lives for 100 or 200 years also, if he still has desire to enjoy the world, he will not be ready to die, he will not be desireless. So it is not the span of life that makes a man fulfilled. It is the desirelessness of the mind that makes a man fearless and fulfilled. Because if I can become desireless at the age of 20 or 30, then I become fulfilled. I don't have to fear death anymore, and I don't have to desire for life anymore, but I will live as long as life is there. I will embrace death when the death comes. This desirelessness gives us the joy, because desirelessness makes the mind calm, and in that calm mind, automatically the natural coordinate of the soul, the joy, it wells forth. The mind gets flooded with that placidity of the soul. That is why Mundaka Upanishad says, towards the end, after discussing everything, it says, Bhidyate hridaya granthihi chidyante sarva samshayaha kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. Tasmin drishte paravare. After seeing the truth in the small as well as the big, in the great as well as the inferior, that means seeing the truth everywhere. It is not a small something limited by something. It is unlimited. It is universal. When the person understands, knows, realizes this truth, then what happens? Bhidyate hridaya granthihi chidyante sarva samshayaha. All the knots of the heart get broken. They get cut asunder. What are the knots of the heart? We are always suffering from these knots. You can call it ego, you can call it desires. They are creating knots within us. We are always feeling small. We are feeling stressed. If we look into our own mind, you will find that so many stress points are there. Our mind is always pressurized by so many desires, so many fears, so many hatreds. It is always making us constricted. The mind is always suffering from constrictions. So when this truth is discovered, when it is realized, all the constrictions of the mind, they simply vanish, they get dissolved. Vidyate hridaya granthihi. So he becomes released, he becomes relaxed, he comes at ease, he becomes universal. Chidyante sarva samshayaha. This inquiry, when it finally discovers this truth, he no longer has any doubt about anything, not even about what is dharma, what is adharma, what is self-realization, will I become self-realized or not? Nothing. He becomes freed of all doubts. Chidyante sarva samshaya. Samshaya means doubt. He is released of all doubts. Still more is the result. What is that? Kshiyante chasya karmani. His all karmas get attenuated, get dissolved. What is this karma? This karma is linked to our constriction of the mind that I am small. I have to do this, I have to do that, or I have done this, I have done that. These are all the constricted ego that we are always thinking of the past and thinking of the future. Either we are thinking of the past to feel ahankara, egoistic about it, I have done good job, I have done this, I have done that, or we feel sinful about the past that I have done something wrong. Similarly about the future, I have to do this, I have to do that, because basically we are always thinking I am doing this, that real I never does anything. So it is the kartritva, I do, and the bhoktritva, I enjoy. This both the constrictions, they go. When the kartritva and bhoktritva, they go, then man becomes a mighty performer, as Vasishtha Deva says in Yoga Vasishtha, that all his karmas dissolve. So he never thinks that I am doing this, and with that mind he can do much more than others. He becomes a mighty performer. Yoga Vasishtha says, Mahakarta. He becomes a mighty performer.